Kevin McCullough for AFA today in our normal studios here, and we're grateful that you're with us. A beautiful day in the nation's largest city. A lot of people, as you can get a glimpse of there in the Times Square area if you're watching on the AFA channel, or welcoming in from wherever you are in AFA Radio Land. We're glad that you're with us. 888-589-8840 is my phone number as always. Kevin McCullough is my name. I'm very honored to have you with us, and we've got a lot of news to get to. What we try to do here in the middle of the day each day is focus on some of the biggest stories that you need to know about, and then also push you to resources that will assist you in staying on top of the information that you need to know, so that you can best make discerning decisions for yourself and for your family in the very, very odd culture we live in. And I'm going to get to an example of just how odd in just a moment. I hope that you'll stay with me for that. First, I just want to touch on something that they just announced on AFN, the American Family News update at the top of the hour. The Supreme Court struck down a key part of the Voting Rights Act. A lot of people, including President Obama, came out, immediately began to racially demagogue this thing. This is, in some way, in his mind, going to set race relations back hundreds of years. The data they were using to determine what should and should not be, in essence, the Voting Rights Act prejudiced the way states were treated before the federal government, and said that some states had to go to Washington and ask permission before they made changes to their election laws. Because you're doing it in some states and not in all states, and because when it was originally set up, it was 40 years ago, and there was a different climate in the country at that time, there may have been precedent or need for it at that time. The Supreme Court voting today decisively, well, not decisively, by one vote, 5-4, but decisively in this regard, and that is that the only African American on the bench voted in favor of striking down the Voting Rights Act law that they took apart today. It was a 1960s era provision that singled out states and districts in the South, those with a history of discrimination, for special screening by the federal government over changes to their laws. The president saying in his disappointment of it that was still needed, that he's disappointed, and I think I know why, friends. I think this is a president who likes the federal government to be in charge of everything, all the time, no matter what it is. If he could, he would figure out some way to attach a sensor to your car so that you drove only the speed that he allowed you to at whatever time you were doing it. I mean, it's getting that bad. But Clarence Thomas, the only African-American on the Supreme Court, said very clearly that he felt like this law was outdated years ago. And while they struck down only the certain provision of it that required states to see, Washington's permission be given over certain things, but what Judge Roberts said in the decision is that they would welcome Congress creating new criteria to guard against prejudice or discrimination in some way, and then resubmit that as a new data, new criteria for how they set that up. Justice Thomas said, get rid of the whole thing. I'd strike down the whole thing. He said, basically, this is America. This is a day in which we have now elected an African American to the highest office in the land. There may be individuals that practice on a personal level some form of prejudice. That happens in every society and on every planet, in every country in the world. What is not allowed by law is systemic discrimination based on one's race, and you can't bar someone from property, from voting, from doing business. You can't set up any form of system that does that anymore. The laws disallow that. So while there may be bad people that are still racist or prejudicial in terms of how they view the rest of the world around them, and those racist people come in every color imaginable. I've heard people of every race say something racist about other races. Sin at the heart of mankind causes bad treatment of one another to take place. Should we, in fact, set up nationwide laws of advantage or discrimination based on that, preferences based on that, et cetera, the Supreme Court saying in this case, no, there's no need for certain states to be singled out by the federal government And I think, friends, it's pretty easy for the average American to see that when we've seen the government act as overreaching and as overbearing and as overly controlling of people's rights and invasive of people's lives that we have in the last 6, 7, 10 weeks, it's easy to see why the Supreme Court justices would say, and Washington's probably not that trustworthy to leave these matters to anyway. We the people are still in charge. We the people hire those who service in Washington, D.C. We the people tell them when they're doing a bad job, and we the people fire them when we don't like the job that they're doing, and we hire those that we feel like will do a better job. Sometimes we the people get it wrong. But nonetheless, it's not the government that's in charge of us. We're in charge of the government. And so from that perspective, the Supreme Court saying there's no need to single out certain states or districts anymore and to treat them in some way as less than equal to the rest of the states in the United States. And for what it's worth, it's a sound decision by the Supreme Court today. All right, 888-589-8840. Parents and grandparents and anyone that takes a child to a doctor, I want you to pay attention to this story because in a rather bold move, the American Academy of Pediatrics is doing something that I can't quite figure out why. I can't figure out what it has to do with treating the health of children. This is in today's Washington Times, written by Cheryl Whitestein. She said, in its first sexual orientation policy update in nearly a decade, the nation's largest pediatricians group said its members should do more to fight heterosexism and homophobia, as well as step up their care of teens with same-sex attractions. Now, do you still take teens to pediatricians? I guess you do. I don't think I was seeing a pediatrician when I was in my mid to late teens, for sure. I think I was by then seeing a primary care physician. But at the start of this week, yesterday, the American Academy of Pediatrics said in its new materials on lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning LGBTQ youths that sexual minority youth should not be considered abnormal. All right, so this is going to be kind of interesting because while the radical progressive left that like to monitor the American Family Radio Network may take what I'm about to say completely out of context and try to make me be something, for instance, homophobic, which I am not, let them go ahead. But what I'm going to say to you is true. Sexually minority youth are abnormal. Therefore, there is no question as to whether or not they are. It set in context, for those of you that might want to tape this and put it on other places in the internet, by percentages, and what we're talking about is abnormal is actually a mathematical term. It is the opposite of what normal is. By percentages alone, it is easy to say that those who question themselves and their sexual acts as being other than traditional man-woman sexual activity or heterosexual activity, that by percentages alone, any other form of sexual activity is in fact abnormal. That's not a statement of prejudice. That's not a statement of demeanment or trying to make someone feel bad or anything else. That's just math. When less than 5% of the population are actively involved in this type of sexual activity, then what you have is an abnormality to the 95% that practice heterosexuality. So, and I know that those that push these organizations and the American Academy of Pediatrics would not on their own come up with this idea, hey, let's put new homosexually oriented material in our lobbies, in our waiting rooms. They wouldn't come up with that on their own. They were encouraged to do this. They were pushed to do this by an external group, or maybe multiple external groups that said, you have to start doing this. And part of the reason I believe, and I could be wrong, is that they desire to, in some way, indoctrinate kids into this idea that what is abnormal is actually morally approvable. See, that's what the person probably wanted to say in their statement. Youth that act on other sexual inclinations other than heterosexual inclinations will always be abnormal because the overwhelming majority of youth that are born in this world are born with the tendency towards heterosexual inclinations. Now, some will transfer that inclination into other forms of inclination as they get sexually active, as they get involved in a wide range of sexual activities. And I totally believe that the path that America and the free world is on is on a path that says there are no moral absolutes in the world of sexual integrity. In fact, there's no such thing as sexual integrity. You just do whatever you want to do with whoever you want to do it. And if anybody says anything about it, then what you do is you shake your finger back in their face and you say, why are you being a hateful bigot? That's what these activists that are pushing the pediatricians of the country to make these changes in their waiting rooms, that's what they're wanting to do. They want to teach the next generation of kids to wag a finger into the face of anyone that says sex outside of traditional heterosexual marriage is approvable, that it is approved, that it's morally okay. Anybody that disagrees with that, they want to be able to label them a bigot, to charge them with a hate crime, to do the things that will so shame the person that thinks that way that they'll be intimidated into silence or something, even though the people that engage in the abnormal behavior will still be an isolated, very tiny percentage of the population that are trying to do that. So what you see happening here is a very blatant attempt to brainwash the next generation of children into going against their own instincts, to begin to unteach those things that parents or faith or God may put into the mind or heart of that child. They want to undo those things through now one more layer and filter into the child's life, and that is the child's doctor. Here's what they want to do. They want to put different types of material into the waiting rooms of these pediatricians. And this is one of the things, and I'm going to link this story to the afatoday.com Facebook page. Doctors can signal their openness to LGBTQ youths by putting out brochures with pictures of both same and opposite gender couples, or by posting a rainbow decal on an office door or bulletin board. The report also suggests that medical questionnaires be changed to be gender neutral, and that staff be trained to not ask a boy about his girlfriend, but to ask him to tell me about your partner instead. This is the American Academy of Pediatrics. This is the group of pediatricians across the country that probably are your current pediatrician is a member of. What is your reaction to this intense push by the American Academy of Pediatrics to infiltrate your pediatrician's office? I'm just curious. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. This is AFA Today. Kevin McCullough, your host, here on AFR Talk. We continue from New York momentarily. Stay with us.